you won't make a difference. So I just want to encourage you and challenge you that in your youth to, you know, hate to be commercialistic, but just do it. I mean, just go out there and get it done. Yeah.
I sort of have often felt discouraged from participating in like the Black Lives Matter movement because I'm white. Because I feel like sentiment from a few really strong voices in my life that think that white people don't care, and white people who participate in the Black Lives Matter movement are just like lying, and they don't actually, like, to themselves, you know, they don't actually know how systemic racism is, or they, you know, don't actually care about Black lives. Yeah. And so I guess that's more just a comment.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I'm just like,
it's true.
Yeah, it's like really hard for me to like get on board with it when I feel discouraged, like, or intimidated.
Well, you know what? In many ways, many of us are really broken people. You know, our history has frustrated us so much. When I said earlier on that, you know, the way that we have been miseducated has dysfunctionalized us, many of us, in multiple ways. Specifically, what I was thinking about is how the same thing happens globally. When I've been to South Africa many times, and I've noticed that I can go to a township, a black township, and the government will have, which they couldn't do this during apartheid, they built these schools. Did I talk about this yesterday? Okay. Yeah. So they build nice schools in black townships, and the schools get vandalized, spray painted, broken windows. Why is that? It's because for generations, they have seen anything good, anything positive by anybody that's not them as not trustworthy. And so everything they learned in school before now has been biased against them. So because of that, there's a filter up when it comes to anything. And it's really a pathology. It's a pathology that we have to, you know, we have to think through. We have to be suspicious all the time. We never know if somebody is really intentioned well. So I would say to you, Naomi, that we need you. We need your partnership. And you know, there's a woman I was just telling Rebecca about. Her name is Diane Gull, and she was a part of our congregation before she moved away for years, and we were very close. And she messaged me a couple of years ago, and she says, you know, she says, I'm back in the struggle again. She belongs to this Facebook page, Coming to the Table. She says, I'm back in. She says, but I recognize that as a white person, it's so easy for me when I get tired to back out of the struggle. But for you as an African American, you wake up in the morning and you're in the struggle every day. You don't have a choice. And I think that's what's thought when you get resistance from African Americans, and there's probably more women than anything, right? Because they'll get in your face, right? Yeah, no, girl, you can't come. So.
It's actually hard to be friends with black women outside of the church context.
Yep, okay, because they're not trusting you, you know. But that doesn't mean that your voice isn't important, and we need healing. We need that. Yeah.
To kind of switch gears a little bit, when you said earlier that it's more of like a Western ideal than a white supremacy ideal, I totally touched base with that because I was in a part of, more of an isolated part of Colombia earlier this year, and while I was there, in broken Spanish and broken English, I had, the number one question that I was asked was, if I come to Canada, by a lot of university students, if I come to Canada, will I experience racism because of the color of my skin? And I said, well, you know, our system is racist. You know, it is, that's unfortunate, but, you know, I lived in the South for half a year, and I said, I don't think it would be as obvious that you would experience racism as if you went to the Southern United States, because they picture that. So, you know, that's the answer that I gave a lot. And then I had 2 Colombians live with me all summer, and the amount of times that they made very racist remarks towards the large African communities in Colombia, which are huge. I even went to the celebration with them. they would make comments like, they don't have food on the table, but they have big stereos and flat screen TVs.
Yeah.
And, laugh about it, but they were absolutely serious and sincere in these remarks and, completely racist. So, I was wondering, do you, in these movements, with Black Lives Matter, do you receive opposition from other minority groups that, are like, well, why aren't Native lives getting the same amount of attention? That, don't see the greater focus of the movement, but are kind of being selfish because it's not, Native lives matter or Hispanic lives matter. It's just, Black lives matter.
Okay, my experience is only mine, so I can't speak for, too broadly about it. But I probably have had more resistance from just Christians. Okay, not Latinos, not Natives, not pretty much not gays, not anybody, right? It's just the church that does this. Sorry, to be so frank, but that's where where it goes. Sadly. Very sad.
That's telling, eh? I mean, the fact that it's the white people saying, why don't white lives matter? And it's not the other minorities saying, why don't...
Yeah, exactly.
It kind of speaks to the whole issue anyway, right?
Yeah.
And one more thing, and then we'll get to your question, but you mentioned, was it Colombia?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is why I talk about the African diaspora, or Pan-Africa, because black people are essentially at the bottom of the totem pole everywhere. When there's an earthquake in Ecuador and people are being flooded out of their homes, it's generally in a location where poor people live, and those people are black Ecuadorians or Peruvians or wherever, in Honduras or wherever it is. It tends to be people, the darker you are, the harder you have it. And it's just something that we're wired to accept,
Yeah, my comment, I've done a lot of work on exclusion, and what I found is that any victim of exclusion will ultimately attempt to usurp the perpetrator.
Yeah.
It's a cyclical, has a cyclical nature. And also, what you've said about the church and the opposition from Christianity, absolutely correct. The church today, especially in the West, has become such a comfort zone that the idea of being separated unto God is almost non-existent. Because we've bought into this structure. And I feel that as Christians we've got to come out of that. And so I think the underlying problems of racism and prejudice and you name it can only be solved ultimately, in the spiritual realm. And coming out of this comfort zone, being separated unto God, and recognizing that the cyclical nature of exclusion is really what we need is a beginning. But do people even understand what that means?
To have a beginning?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that, our problem is the darkness, is my people perish for a lack of knowledge. And the more light we get, the more we bring this out of the shadows, that it's helpful for us. Somehow, I still have hope, and it doesn't even make sense to me when I see what's going on. It's the Holy Spirit. Yeah, Andy.
Before we leave tonight, I just wanted to let you know that we do have a White History Month.
You have a what?
A White History Month.
Oh, is that right?
As a matter of fact, we have more than one. We have 11 of them.
Really
Well, whatever.
Is there, a lot of what's been said tonight is not good enough. Have you had any positive, not that to say you haven't been positive at all, but I know you were talking about some negative encounters you've had with police, negative encounters you've had with the church, negative encounters you've had with people, but do you have any happening?
Well, yeah, let me tell you that this the fact that the people that showed up to march and protest, right? Even though they're cast as a bunch of ne'er-do-wells who probably should get a job or something, which isn't the case at all. They're industrious people, productive human beings. But but I developed new relationships. There are fresh relationships that I've gained over the past year with people in my community that I didn't know existed. And we spend time together, and we know who we are, and we affirm one another. So I think, to me, that is evident. I think that's probably one reason I do have hope, is because these people are from all kinds of backgrounds. You know, these people are atheists. They are from a number of religious traditions, including Christians, believe it or not, and different sexual orientations, and you know, different national backgrounds, and we just really become good friends. So yeah.
I think that the fact that you're here speaking to us as a group is a good thing for everybody here. That's a good story.
I was gonna say something like that earlier as well. That like we toss around the idea of progress or the word progressive pretty lightly, especially when we're talking about like technology or whatever. But I think that this is the perfect example of what progress looks like, and that it's an action and it's not a tool. But it's like something that comes about because of dialogue.
Yeah. Yeah, and so what we do is we empower one another, right? So that when there are things that we would let slip, let happen, that we're exposed to, that we'll stand up to. You know, little things, right? We'll hear people, like, you know, you're talking about your friends, you know, and their unfriendly remarks. I mean, when we come together like this, what we do is we give each other permission to say, no more. Yeah. So I'm gonna, Peter.
It's just been so rich. Thanks. There's so many different directions. We had a visitor from South Africa who gave talks, and what I didn't realize was that the framers of the apartheid understanding for the Afrikaners all did their doctorates in Germany in the 30s, and that they were conscious in taking the principles of National Socialism into their context. And I've read the quotes now from their works that show this to be true. And you know, the thing you say, Karen, about people that are hurt, the one who is excluded will look for the chance to usurp the perpetrator. This is, in South Africa, it's so obvious with the Boer War, and you know, the Dutch are so badly treated by the British, and then when they get a chance to be in control, they hurt everybody around them. It's just so.
I hope you're not going to talk about Israel now.
I have strong feelings, but I feel that if what you're saying is and what Nate just said is so right. That if we could start to understand the scapegoating tendencies of humans, and if we could start to understand this thing that you just talked about, the one that when people that have been hurt finally get in power, they tend to hurt others. If we could understand a few of these mechanisms and understand them well enough that we could be prepared for them the next time they happen, you know, maybe we could build a consciousness that will grow towards a more peaceful solution.
Thank you. Good speech, yeah.
Well, thanks for making me think of that.
So I'm going to let your professor conclude our time for tonight, and then hope to see you tomorrow. Yeah? Or maybe, I don't know if you have any other assignments.
I guess I'll just say thanks for coming out and for all of your discussions, and I hope to see the same faces here again tomorrow night. I'll see all the other faces tonight. And thank you, David. And I think you've given us a lot to, think about this evening and carry on with tomorrow. So I'll see you all then. Thanks.